At my wedding, my husband embraced my half-naked foster sister and declared he'd marry her instead of me. My father forced me to give up my wedding dress and become her bridesmaid. But they had no idea I was the daughter of the country's richest man. And their nightmare was just beginning. Please listen to the story. At the wedding ceremony, my foster sister's bridesmaid dress suddenly slipped down, revealing the seductive lingerie underneath. My husband, wanting to save face for her, immediately embraced her tightly and said it was just a little intimate game between him and his foster sister. Actually, the person I've always wanted to marry is Sophia. Since fate has arranged it this way, I'll change the bride right here and marry the person I truly love. Then he stepped beside me and lowered his voice, saying, "Be good, listen to me. Sophia's purity is more important. Quickly give her your wedding dress and be her bridesmaid. After all, the person registered to marry me is you. You're still my wife. It's just one ceremony, it's not important." I burst out laughing. "Oh really? The wedding ceremony is very important indeed. I've had a custom wedding dress made for my sister long ago. How could I let her suffer by wearing my dress?" I clapped my hands and smiled. "Moreover, I have another wedding gift prepared for this pair of cheating scumbags." Emma Tham, what are you babbling about?" Lucas Green's face immediately darkened when he heard the words cheating scumbags. "Am I wrong?" I smiled at him. "You're the one who had an affair with my foster sister Sophia Tham before the wedding, and you shamelessly engaged in intimate acts during the wedding ceremony. Now it's just fate exposing you both, that's all." I turned to face the guests in the audience. "Everyone, am I wrong?" People looked at each other speechlessly, not expecting to witness such a dramatic scene. "Emma, I already told you it was just acting. Why are you taking it so seriously?" Lucas pulled me toward him again, looking at me with disappointment. My father also rushed onto the stage, pointing at me and scolding quietly, "I really raised an ungrateful wolf. How dare you disgrace the Tham family like this? When things have gotten to this point, instead of helping your sister cover it up, do you still consider us family?" I looked at his face and laughed coldly inside. "Family? Since the day Sophia Tham, that foster sister, stepped into our house, I was no longer family with any of you. First, the ones disgracing the Tham family are your shameless son-in-law and foster daughter, who like to display their sexuality in front of crowds. This has nothing to do with me, Emma. Second, she's just an adopted daughter of the Tham family. We're naturally not family." My words showed no mercy, making the old man so angry his face turned purple. Meanwhile Sophia, who had been held in Lucas's arms, suddenly bit her lip and knelt down on the ground in her nearly naked state, tears streaming down like rain as she kept bowing her head. "Sister, please fulfill my wish to be with Lucas. You know he loves me. You used your position as company manager to force him. If he didn't marry you, you would cancel the contract between my company and his. Lucas had to sacrifice for his company's career, but why can't you be magnanimous and let go for true love?" She cried while telling her sob story, looking extremely pitiful, causing public opinion in the audience to immediately shift. They had thought Miss Tham was the victim, but now they saw she was the one forcing the marriage. Chairman Tham giving the company to his eldest daughter wasn't wrong, but using power to steal her sister's man is truly despicable. Looking at Sophia like that, she must have been bullied by her sister at home quite a bit. How pitiful. Amid the noisy discussions, most of those leading the guests to sympathize with Sophia and attack me were relatives of the Tham family, their faces sour and heated. "Emma, look what you've driven your sister to." My father shouted at me, "You no longer need to handle Lucas's company project. Don't even think about continuing to use that to threaten them." He stood up, took a deep breath, and said, "At the same time, I will seriously consider leaving the company and all assets to Sophia. Then let's see who you'll rely on to oppress your sister." The entire hall collectively gasped. Chairman Tham really considers Sophia as his biological daughter. So the eldest miss will have nothing left. It's all because Emma is too arrogant. Otherwise, it wouldn't have come to this father-daughter confrontation today. What a troubled family. "Emma, listen to what everyone is saying about you." The old man frowned and spoke in a lecturing father's tone. "As long as you obediently apologize and take off your dress to be a bridesmaid for your sister, I can still keep the management position for you and let you earn some salary." I looked around and found their arrogant behavior only laughable. "Dad, you really misunderstood me. I never threatened my sister. I've long wanted to fulfill their wishes. I even said the wedding dress was already prepared for her. I clapped my hands, and the doors of the wedding hall immediately opened. A sparkling wedding dress was wheeled in. But the three people on stage immediately changed color because it wasn't just a wedding dress being brought in. There were also several sets of seductive lingerie behind it. At first, the guests were surprised to see the wedding dress, thinking I was truly magnanimous and had really prepared to give it up beforehand. But when they saw the seductive lingerie sets, everyone was stunned and turned away, not daring to look. Everyone, don't rush. I have even more eye-opening things. Please join me in appreciating them. I snapped my fingers, and the large screen immediately played a video. It was footage from a custom wedding dress shop featuring only Lucas and Sophia. Lucas, you only spent $5,000 on your sister's wedding dress, but mine costs $50,000. Isn't $50,000 is nothing. I'd spend $100,000 for you. Lucas didn't care, looking at Sophia with tender emotion. Sophia, rest assured, you're the only one I love. When the time comes, we'll secretly go to a European castle for our wedding. I'll definitely give you the best. He lowered his voice suggestively. Not just the wedding dress. I've also ordered several bedroom outfits for you. The video cut off. Cut the video immediately. Lucas shouted angrily, completely losing control. The entire hall fell silent. So, the wedding dress has just arrived, and I had someone fetch it, conveniently bringing back all 10 outfits you ordered for her. Sophia, which one would you like to wear now? I asked leisurely. You say your sister is true love, but you're too stingy to spend money on her. Using a 5,000 yuan wedding dress to deceive someone, is this called forced marriage? Clearly, it's a cheating man trying to shift the blame. People in the crowd gradually began to speak up for me. Lucas's face alternated between pale and green as he spoke to me with venom. Emma, you secretly recorded without permission. This violates my personal privacy. He suddenly began shaking his head and sighing. I admit I once loved you, but then you kept making things difficult for Sophia. I couldn't stand it anymore. When Sophia poured water for me, you said she was improper. When Sophia cooked sobering soup, you wanted to kick her out of the house. He pulled Sophia's hand as if he had endured enough. If it weren't for that, how could I have easily fallen in love with Sophia and sworn never to let her suffer again? Sighs arose from around us. I almost forgot the scene of Sophia touching his hand while pouring water and cooking soup in her nightgown. I used to fear the company's cooperative relationship and your power, but now my father-in-law understands the situation. I have nothing to fear anymore. Seeing people supporting him again, Lucas raised his head proudly and continued, now quickly take off your dress and be a bridesmaid for my Sophia. Hey Lucas, your sister-in-law was already embarrassed by having her clothes stripped earlier. Now your sister should also strip right here, that would be fair. Several of Lucas's vile friends stared at me intently, while Lucas and my father allowed them to reach their disgusting hands toward me. I didn't hesitate and immediately shoulder through them, fiercely knocking those despicable men to the ground. My thick high heel mercilessly stomped on the hand of that pig-headed guy. Amid his screams, my father stepped forward again, scolding me endlessly. What time is it now? Why are you still causing such chaos? How ridiculous, when a daughter is sexually harassed and humiliated, the father scolds her for not submitting because it embarrasses him. It's precisely because of having a father like him that I had to learn these self-defense skills. I clenched my fists and looked at Lucas's ashen face, smiling calmly. Everyone, don't rush. I said I would let your wedding continue normally. It's just that my wedding gifts aren't finished yet. A piece of paper was quickly handed to Lucas. As soon as Lucas glanced at it, he suddenly exclaimed, Sophia, you're pregnant. Lucas's face lit up with joy as he immediately hugged Sophia and spun her around. Everyone's expressions became more interesting. Some showed disdain, others waited gleefully to see me humiliated. Only Sophia didn't look very happy and seemed somewhat uneasy. I remained calm and composed, just smiling slightly as I said to them, that's right. Congratulations, in 7 more months, you'll be a father. Lucas's hand suddenly froze. He suddenly grabbed the paper again and looked at it once more. 3 months pregnant. But 3 months ago I was clearly on a business trip abroad for the entire month and didn't return to the country at all. Sister, what are you saying? I'm clearly only 2 months pregnant. Sophia's eyes reddened as she gripped Lucas's hand tightly. Lucas, if you don't believe me, we can call Dr. Hughes now. If he says it's not 2 months, I'll immediately bash my head and die on the spot. Anyway, I've already been so humiliated today, I don't want to live anymore. She cried while trying to let go of Lucas's hand to run outside. Lucas looked heartbroken and immediately pulled her back into his arms. Baby, I never said I didn't believe you. I know for sure that Emma is playing tricks to harm you. Don't cry. Dr. Hughes is the Green family's family doctor. Sophia dared to speak like this, making Lucas immediately dismiss his doubts. Right in front of me, he tore the pregnancy test paper into pieces and smiled coldly at me. Emma, take back your cheap schemes and go backstage to change clothes. Emma, how long do you want to keep causing trouble? You're a company CEO, yet you're so petty and malicious. If reporters find out, how will they view our Hangvu group? The old man also chimed in, even bringing up the company as an excuse. Well said. I smiled gently. If you don't want the company to be affected, I'll resign. If you want your daughter to continue with the wedding, then sign this severance document. From now on, your only daughter will be Sophia. The entire hall was shocked. My father looked panic-stricken at the resignation letter and severance papers I had prepared, his face contorting. Are you crazy? Resigning at this time? What about the company's projects? That 100 billion contract hasn't been signed yet. The guests' expressions changed again. Mr. Tham keeps talking about the company but doesn't care at all about severing ties with his biological daughter. No, it's all because of me. Sophia cried loudly, kneeling on the ground, wailing while slapping herself repeatedly. It's all my fault that this conflict happened. Sister, please don't leave. I won't get married anymore. Okay. Lucas was extremely heartbroken. He immediately knelt down with her and promised my father, Uncle, when the contract is needed, I'll handle it myself for you. I'm your son-in-law, we'll be family from now on. I don't believe that without Emma, the project can't be completed. His face was full of confidence, and my father was immediately moved by him. With a cold snort, he grabbed the pen and signed his name. Emma, from now on, I have no daughter like you. Good. I was the first to applaud. Since that's the case, as a wedding guest today, I must give my final gift. Someone. The main door opened once again. The butler led in more than a dozen boxes of luxury goods and a pile of property deeds. He opened the gift list and read each item. My goodness, so many properties and gifts. Is Sophia really this thoughtful? She still has some conscience. Amid the surprised voices, my father's expression gradually softened as he looked at those gifts. Dad, you're wrong, I said coldly. Where would I get money to buy these things? I threw down a 5-yuan ring that Lucas had given me on my birthday. Your good son-in-law only bought me this. Those gifts were all bought by your foster daughter using Lucas's credit card. What did I do to deserve those things? What did you say? Lucas jerked his head around. Sophia tremblingly confirmed it was all true. You can check your bank account. I don't know if there are even 4 digits left. Lucas had spoiled her so much that Sophia knew all his bank card passwords. She could spend freely. I bought those things only out of jealousy. From childhood to adulthood, all the good things belonged to my sister. I bought them because I'd never seen such things before. I didn't mean it. It must be said that Sophia's pitiful act always worked on my father and Lucas. As long as she shed tears and pouted, those two would immediately soften. All right, it's just some money. Consider it a pre-wedding gift from my daughter to Sophia. My father waved his hand dismissively. Once you cooperate with us and sign the contract, what do those cards matter? Although it involved personal interests, even though my father said that, Lucas's expression wasn't as bright as before. But with so many eyes watching, he still had to put on a brave face and reluctantly smile. It's fine. If it's spent, we'll earn more. Consider it a birthday gift. He looked at Sophia with loving eyes, then turned to criticize me. Emma, are you done with your performance? You've schemed and plotted all this just to break us up and humiliate Sophia. He glanced at me contemptuously. Then you've succeeded. With such a vicious heart, I would absolutely never marry a woman like you. Even now, he still arrogantly thinks I did all this because I still love him and want to marry him. So I sabotaged them. I burst out laughing. Lucas, if you can cheat before marriage, then naturally I can prepare in advance. Otherwise, how could I make you pay the price? Lucas and my father looked at each other and laughed loudly with arrogance. Pay the price. What price? We haven't lost anything. You're the one who's lost all face. But a second later, his words were immediately broken. What's this? I just arrived and the bride has already been changed. A deep, warm male voice suddenly rang out from outside the wedding hall. Everyone turned to look, and they all gasped in shock. Isn't that the chairman of Min Sun Group, the current richest man, Victor Liang? How could the Tham family's wedding invite such a big shot? Chairman Liang. My father was overjoyed and rushed to welcome him. I didn't expect you to actually come. He had only sent the invitation casually, never thinking Victor would personally attend. The 100 billion AI platform order was exactly the project I was negotiating with Min Sun Group. Chairman Tham, your invitation clearly stated it was Emma's wedding. Now what's this about? Sophia is also my daughter. There's just a small misunderstanding. My father smiled awkwardly. I know Emma has been discussing a project with your group recently, but her health isn't good, so I've handed it over to my youngest daughter and son-in-law. He pushed Lucas forward, his face full of flattery. He knew Victor had always valued me highly and had even praised me in front of others many times. Now with his back against the wall, he had to try to cover everything up. Unfortunately, before Lucas could confidently introduce himself, Victor frowned and waved dismissively. I'm afraid that won't work. This project was originally intended as a gift for my son-in-law. Now that my daughter isn't getting married, naturally it can't be given to you either. He turned to look at me with a gentle smile. Emma, who do you want to give this project to? The entire hall immediately fell dead silent. Under everyone's stunned gazes, I stepped forward, linked arms with Victor, and smiled softly. Dad, I haven't decided on a partner yet, but there's definitely someone who's been eliminated. I hope from now on, Min Sun Group and Hangvu Group will never cooperate again. Emma, what are you babbling about? Old Tam was the first to react, pointing at me and scolding like splashing water. You ungrateful daughter. Do you think signing a severance paper means you can climb up to Chairman Liang's level? Dad, is he even worthy? Emma, how did you become like this? Lucas looked pained. I know you're upset, but you don't need to go crazy in front of everyone like this, do you? Quickly let go of Chairman Liang. Sister, are you not feeling well? Why don't you go backstage and rest? Everyone thought I had gone insane. Only I remained calm, looking at them and shaking my head with a light laugh. Worthy of being you, Mr. Tham. Your acting skills are much better than these youngsters. I raised my hand, and the lights in the hall immediately dimmed while the screen lit up again. 2 DNA test reports proving the real blood relationship between Sophia and me, along with a secret the Tham family had hidden for decades, appeared. I was not the biological child of the Tham family. Only the Green family and my foster mother knew this. Back then, my foster mother was a merchant guild's precious daughter, and I was an abandoned child she picked up. After marrying this foster father, my foster mother discovered she couldn't have children. My foster father pretended to be devoted because he wanted to rely on my foster mother's backing, swearing that even without children, he wouldn't divorce. Later, by chance, my foster mother found me by a trash can and raised me as her own. When I was 7, that foster father who had sworn eternal love brought his illegitimate child home. He lied to my foster mother that it was an orphan adopted from an orphanage, saying he wanted me to have a sibling companion. At that time, my foster mother was seriously ill. Even though she noticed something wrong, she didn't have the strength to intervene. After she died, if not for my maternal grandmother's family's firm intervention, I'm afraid he would have immediately declared Sophia as the biological child and kicked me out of the house right away. Fortunately, I finally found my real father. I calmly looked at the increasingly shocked people opposite me and continued. It was just a week before the wedding. Impossible. Impossible. How could you be the daughter of the richest man in the country? Both Lucas and Sophia couldn't believe it as they stared at me. Lucas especially was so shocked his veins bulged and his face turned pale, unable to say a word. The surrounding guests became even more agitated. No wonder Mr. Tham didn't hesitate to sever ties. Turns out she wasn't his biological daughter anyway. The mistress's child gave birth to another one who likes being a mistress. It's truly hereditary. Curses rang out everywhere. Sophia bit her lips tightly, looking at me with resentment, but this time no one stood up to defend her. My foster father now vaguely felt fear and tried to force a smile, cautiously approaching me. Sophia, you found your biological father early on. Why didn't you say something sooner? I never expected you to be Chairman Liang's daughter. Raising you all these years, I can be proud of myself. He deliberately changed the subject, his greedy eyes turning to me. For over 20 years, you've always been the obedient child who gave us peace of mind. Your foster mother in heaven would surely be satisfied knowing I raised you to be so accomplished. Today's wedding, due to Sophia's immaturity causing trouble. I think we should sit down and rest a bit before continuing. He kept mentioning the so-called debt of upbringing, still thick-skinned enough to think I would continue marrying Lucas. Debt of upbringing? I laughed coldly. Robert Tham, are you even worthy of mentioning those 4 words? Angry shouts arose from outside. It's my foster mother's maternal relatives bursting in, scolding my father severely. What debt of upbringing do you have with Emma? You didn't even spend a penny on her dowry and prevented us from attending her wedding. Grandpa, uncle. I nodded slightly and pulled them close to me. Dad, these are my mother's maternal relatives. From childhood to adulthood, it's thanks to them that I could grow up safely. My biological father had been coldly observing from beginning to end. Only now did he smile and shake hands with my uncle, sincerely saying, "Thank you for protecting my daughter. Rest assured, whoever truly loves Emma, I will absolutely not make things difficult for them. You will forever be her family, and Emma will forever have 2 mothers." He turned around and raised his voice loudly. Everyone heard what my daughter just said. From today forward, Min Sun and Hong Vu cease all cooperation and will never cooperate again. He officially announced this decision at the scene. Continue your wedding. We'll change venues. I walked out with my uncle supporting my grandfather. Dad, I want to formally introduce my family to everyone. Stop. Emma, stop right there. Robert's legs had gone weak with fear, while Lucas blocked my path, angrily saying, "You're the richest man's daughter. Why didn't you say so earlier? So you never wanted to marry me. You waited until today to get revenge on me, didn't you?" I looked at his tense, bulging-eyed expression and just shrugged innocently. So what if I did? So what if I didn't? I was just helping you and the person you love be together. Instead of thanking me, you're blaming me. You say I set a trap for you, but the tricks you and Sophia played weren't any less than mine. Before going on stage, you had her wear seductive lingerie and deliberately loosened her outer dress, waiting for the right moment to let the dress slip. Then you smoothly pushed the boat with the current to let her replace me as the bride. I glanced disdainfully at Sophia still cowering in Lucas's suit jacket. You never cared about her honor anyway, because you yourself are sick with exhibitionism and love playing perverted games with her. All of us here were just part of your twisted game. When her dress fell, didn't you feel excited? As soon as I finished speaking, someone in the audience stood up, pointing at Lucas and scolding. I really had 8 lifetimes of bad luck coming to the Tham family wedding today. Give me back my mental distress compensation. Disgusting to death. This pair of cheating scumbags. What do they take us for? I want to vomit. Thank goodness for Miss Tham. Oh wait, now it should be Miss Liang. Thank goodness you stopped in time. Otherwise, you would have been devoured to the bone by these 2. Lucas's face turned red as a pig's liver as he stammered explanations. I didn't do that. It was an accident, unintentional. Accident. So what? Who cares? I laughed contemptuously. In any case, I no longer have any relationship with any of you. Get out of my way. Oh, Emma, Emma. Robert finally collapsed to his knees, crawling to grab my pants leg. The company can't do without you. Please reconsider for the sake of raising you all these years. Just now you said I wasn't your daughter, Mr. Tham. I smiled and reminded him kindly. Since Sophia entered the house, you stopped seeing me as your daughter. If not for my uncle's constant help and Sophia's worthlessness, would you have given me the company to manage? Emma, you can't say that. Before my father could speak, Lucas had regained his composure and whispered to me. Emma, I was wrong this time. I was foolish to hurt you like this. But we're legally married after all. I'm still your husband, your father's son-in-law. We're still married. Just give me some time, and I promise I'll never leave you again in the future. I'll work on that project with you too. You know my capabilities. With my support, wouldn't it be even better if we strive together? Everyone was stunned by Lucas's thick skin, and I burst out laughing. Lucas, where do you get the confidence to think I still want to marry trash like you? The forced smile he had been struggling to maintain immediately froze. Marriage registration. Yes, I hadn't yet figured out how to react to this unbelievably stupid man when a respectful voice beside my ear. Miss, here is your divorce certificate. Chairman Liang instructed me to prepare it early. Lucas staggered back a step. How is this possible? I didn't sign divorce papers or appear in person. How can we be divorced? My daughter wants a divorce, is that difficult? My father, Chairman Liang, looked at him contemptuously, then turned to me gently. Let's go, Emma. This type of man really isn't worth another look. Lucas trembled all over, finally realizing I truly had no relationship with him anymore. Sophia unwillingly looked at me, then rushed to embrace Lucas, crying, Lucas, what do you mean? Don't you want me anymore? Sophia, you have some nerve. Lucas roared at her, angrily shaking off her hand. How dare you say such things, you destroyer? You've spent all my money, and now you're pretending to be pitiful. Indeed, what Lucas cared about most were still his empty bank cards. Before, Robert had backed him up, so he could endure. But now the Tham family was about to collapse, and he had nearly become a laughingstock because of Sophia. Destroyer, what right do you have to scold me like that? Sophia also screamed. Even if your sister left, isn't there still Dad's company? We just lack one partner, can't we still do business? My God. Mocking laughter arose from the guests, and some sighed at her stupidity. After being banned by Chairman Liang, who would dare do business with Hang View anymore? How utterly humiliating, they're worlds apart from Miss Liang. Sophia turned to look at her father, her face pale and body trembling, speechless, finally realizing the severity of the situation. No, this can't be. She tearfully grabbed Lucas's hand and placed it on her belly. What about the baby? Lucas, I'm carrying our child. Get an abortion immediately. Lucas turned cold and heartless. From now on, you and I have no relationship. Amid everyone's commotion, he turned to look at me and swore, Emma, I'll completely cut ties with her. For the rest of my life, you'll be my only wife. Please give me another chance. I smiled faintly. Cut ties completely? Mr. Green, I'm afraid you don't have that qualification. I said leisurely. I already said Sophia is 3 months pregnant. But if Dr. Hughes comes, he might say 2 months. Because the baby is his. Go home and check the cameras, there will be surprises. I dropped this time bomb and left the scene with my father, successfully escaping. Behind us came sounds of shouting, questioning, and crying chaos. Only when the door closed did the world truly become quiet. My father and I returned home, formally met my foster mother's family, then sat down to discuss future directions. Since I had resigned from my foster father's company, Dad asked if I wanted to work directly at his company. No, I've already taken my entire team and left, and I'm establishing my own company. I smiled at my kind father, gradually explaining my plans. At the Tham family company, I was suppressed for too long. Now I finally have a chance to spread my wings, so I temporarily don't want to enter another protective cage. Who knows? Maybe in the future I'll become your business partner. I winked at him. Good. As long as you've thought it through, go ahead. My father patted my shoulder, his face full of pride. Dad will always be your support. Whatever you need, just tell me directly. From that day on, I began a completely new career and life that belonged entirely to me. On the other side, after Lucas watched the camera footage, he smashed the Tham house to pieces. My foster father still defended his crying daughter, pointing at Lucas and scolding loudly. How dare you come here and cause trouble? Sophia might not have been willing with that Hughes guy. Why are you going crazy? Not willing. Lucas trembled with rage. She actively seduced him, and you dare say she wasn't willing. So what, didn't you come to me by betraying your good sister too? Sophia laughed coldly. We're all the same. Stop pretending to be moral. You must acknowledge the baby in my belly and marry me. Otherwise, Lucas, just wait to see how I'll destroy your reputation. Lucas still thought that whether it was me or Sophia, all threats were just bluffs. Until he received a termination notice on his phone, he frantically rushed into the company director's office. Why fire me? I didn't do anything wrong. He angrily questioned the leadership but received an answer that terrified him. Did nothing wrong. Lucas, you dared to offend even Victor's daughter. What company would dare hire you now? Lucas was thoroughly scolded by his superiors. In less than half an hour, he was kicked out of the company with all his belongings. From that day, he gradually realized that not only Robert's company was blacklisted, but so was he. All the resumes he sent out met with silence. No company dared to confront Min Sun Group by hiring a hot potato like him. What was even more troublesome was that Robert and Sophia clung to him completely. As long as he didn't agree to marry Sophia, they would go everywhere causing trouble, spreading rumors about his immorality, making it completely impossible for him to find new work. Cornered with no way out, Lucas finally desperately realized the only path left was to marry Sophia and work at the Tham family company. Under constant torment, he finally had to compromise. Forced to hold a wedding with Sophia, accept a child that wasn't his, and begin facing the chaotic ruins of Hangvu Group. After losing me and the entire core team, Robert initially still had some authority to suppress the lower management, but in recent years he had been unable to cope. Since the company was handed to me, I had carried out major reforms. Now he wanted to return to the old ways, which naturally couldn't continue. How much did first quarter revenue drop after General Manager Tham left? If this continues, I'm afraid we won't even be able to pay salaries. Amid complaints everywhere, Lucas tried to step up and reclaim the empire. But outside, almost all companies knew about the conflict between Min Sun and Hangvu. No one dared to be the pioneer in signing major contracts with Hangvu anymore. Internally, employees all knew it was Lucas's affair that had offended me, leading to today's situation. They couldn't possibly have a good attitude toward him. If not for this unmarried son-in-law's misconduct, would General Manager Tham have left? Would the company be in this state? Everyone avoided and resented him. He had no chance to demonstrate his abilities and could only watch helplessly with Robert as the company collapsed and declared bankruptcy. Sophia was inherently wasteful, only knowing how to enjoy herself. Having her manage the company was truly a pipe dream. Within a month, Lucas went from a promising young tech entrepreneur to a penniless vagrant. When he desperately sought me out, I was chatting with employees in my new company about the upcoming opening ceremony. Emma, please save me. He was thin as a rail. As soon as he saw me, he knelt down in front of everyone, causing panic. I was wrong, I was stupid, I was despicable. He cried while slapping himself. I have nowhere else to go now. Can you take me in? Give me one more chance. Even as a security guard or janitor, anything is fine. I beg you, for the sake of our past love, help me one last time. I looked at him kneeling there, my face showing no emotion. Sorry, my company doesn't support useless people. Lucas, since the day you and Sophia rolled around together, in my eyes, you've been no different from a dead person. My company is about to open. These days are all about celebration. Don't bring bad luck in front of me. I immediately had security escort him out. Lucas sat crouched on the street, holding his head and crying in pain. He didn't understand how everything had turned out this way. He staggered back to his cheap rental apartment, just in time to see Sophia holding her belly, taking his last bank card from the drawer. I'm going to buy some seafood. You cook tonight, she pouted. Hurry up and find a job. We're almost out of money, and you still have to support me and the baby. Before she finished speaking, Lucas had grabbed the flower vase by the door and smashed it hard on her head. On the day my company officially opened, I met Robert again. He knelt outside the conference hall, begging to see me. I agreed. Emma. In just over a month of not seeing him, he had gone completely gray, his cheeks were sunken, and he looked 10 years older. Can you lend me some money? He wiped his tears. That bastard Lucas beat Sophia. Sophia nearly died in the hospital. And the baby is gone too. I beg you, just one last time, help me. Give me some money for surgery. His face was red with shame as he bowed and begged. I looked at him like this and suddenly remembered old times, laughing. Mr. Tham, you look just like me in the old days. Since the day you brought Sophia home, every time I was sick and hospitalized, I had to struggle through it alone. I remember when I first took over the company, I drank until I had gastric bleeding at a social function and had to be rushed to the emergency room. All my money was controlled by you. When paying the hospital bills, I called you dozens of times, but you wouldn't answer because that day you had to organize Sophia's birthday party. If my uncle hadn't arrived in time to sign, I might have died from vomiting blood in the hospital. When I begged you, did you show any compassion? Now what makes you think I would care about your daughter's life or death? Robert broke out in cold sweat, crying and apologizing, begging my forgiveness. But, General Manager Tham, Chairman Liang has arrived and is looking for you. My assistant smiled and reported, let's go. Also, tell security to watch him and not let him disturb my ceremony. I threw back a sentence and turned to leave without looking back. Emma, Emma, don't go. I'm your father. Tragic cries rang out behind me, but my heart was calm as a lake, without a ripple. Father, are you even worthy? After the company was officially established, I took on a project, and prepared to go abroad with my father for inspection. Lucas chased to the airport, his eyes red as he asked me, "Is there still any possibility between us?" He said he didn't understand how I could be so heartless. We clearly loved each other so much. Lucas, I never denied that I once loved you. I looked straight at him and spoke clearly. After all, I truly once thought you were the person who would save me from the abyss. But what's broken is broken. I once said I never regret any decision. Amid Lucas's painful remorse, I boarded the plane, flying toward a completely new future that belonged to me. A year later, when I returned to the country, I heard news about them. I heard Robert sued Lucas and sent him to prison. Lucas went crazy in jail, telling fellow inmates daily that he was the richest man's son-in-law and was finally sent to a mental institution. Robert and Sophia, after bankruptcy, shouldered huge debts and now wash dishes for hire in restaurants, living even more miserably than vagrants. But those things had long since ceased to have anything to do with me. I had begun a new life, a new career, and stepped boldly into my own spring. Here is the second story. My husband brought his mistress home, my son threw away the last gift my dying mother made, and they locked me out during a fever. The day I filed for divorce, they laughed. The day I refused to come back even when my son lay injured and crying, they finally understood. I wasn't their doormat anymore. Please listen to the story. The night before our wedding anniversary, Quincy Tang walked into a hotel hand in hand with Morgan White. I called him, but the person who answered was our 13-year-old son. Dade's at a parent-teacher conference. He doesn't allow outsiders to disturb him. His voice was cold. After hanging up, he blocked my number. That night, the father and son used the excuse that I was constantly bothering them, and together they locked me out on the windy balcony for the entire night. This time I truly understood. Despite my high fever, I prepared divorce papers and took the initiative to ask Quincy for a divorce in his study. When he heard the word, divorce, Quincy didn't even bother to look up, remaining focused on his work as if he hadn't heard anything. I waited for an entire hour. Just as I was about to faint, the man finally spoke. "Selena, you're asking for divorce just because we made you stand in the wind for a bit. You were at fault first. Punishing you was only natural, wasn't it?" I opened my mouth, suppressing my instinct to argue back for the first time, and simply said softly, "Just sign it." Quincy responded indifferently, "Custody goes to me. You have no objections, right?" Seeing me shake my head, Quincy raised his eyebrows slightly, as if to demonstrate so-called fairness. He still called Mason into the study to ask, "After your parents' divorce, who do you want to live with?" Mason was indeed Quincy's biological son. Not only did their faces look identical, but even the way they looked at me was the same, cold and arrogant. The boy answered coldly, "I'm a Tang, not a Tran." In the past, every time I heard this, I would stay up all night crying until morning. But after last night, my maternal feelings for Mason had completely dried up. Now I didn't even bother to glance at him and turned to walk into the bedroom. In our 13 years of marriage, I had devoted all my attention to caring for Quincy and Mason's daily needs. As a result, I barely had any personal belongings in this house. In less than 10 minutes, I had finished packing. When I pulled my suitcase out of the room, Quincy was sitting on the sofa looking at stock charts. Without turning his head, he said coldly, "When you're ready, call the driver to take you." "No need," I said. Fighting through my feverish dizziness, I struggled toward the front door. Just then, a golf ball flew down from the second floor and struck me hard on the back of my neck. The second floor was Mason's game room. He often practiced golf indoors after finishing his homework. Seeing me collapse to the floor holding my head, Quincy and Mason merely exchanged glances with knowing looks, pretending to be innocent, and just left me lying half-conscious on the floor for 30 minutes. Finally, my entire body was cold and drenched in sweat. I struggled to crawl out of the Tang family's front door and made my way alone to the hospital for an IV drip. After my fever subsided, I drowsily boarded a bus back to Jiao City. 2 hours later, I stood in front of my grandmother's house, surprised by my sudden appearance. Grandma didn't ask a single question. She just quickly lit the wood stove and cooked me a large pot of taro rice. When Mason was little, he loved eating taro just like me. Sometimes he ate so much he would cry and demand I hold him. But when he was 6 or 7, a Tang family relative once told him, "Taro is trashy food. Only country people eat it." From that day on, Mason refused to let me bring taro from Grandma's house home anymore. Now, as I ate, I kept choking and had to pound my chest repeatedly, trying to burp. Grandma looked at me, every wrinkle on her face lighting up with a gentle smile. "My silly Selena, you won't even slow down when eating." To make it easier for me to eat, Grandma's trembling, wrinkled hands gently smoothed my messy hair and braided it into the ponytail I loved as a child. That night, someone like me who had suffered from insomnia for years actually had beautiful dreams all night long. I knew I had finally truly come home. 2 days later, Quincy called me. His voice was cold as he asked, "Where did you hang that silk shirt I bought abroad last year?" I reflexively told him the exact location, and even suggested he pair it with the tie in the left drawer of his dresser. I could hear rustling sounds of him changing clothes on the other end. When he spoke again, there was a hint of hesitant praise in his voice. "Not bad pairing. I'll wear this tonight to meet a client." He paused, then continued, "Send me your address. I'll have someone bring you the custom jewelry set for our anniversary." I flatly refused. "No need. Morgan and I don't have the same taste." Morgan was Quincy's first love. Morgan White. Since she returned to the country to become his personal secretary, everything big and small around Quincy, from business trips to gift selection, was all arranged by Morgan. Hearing me mention Morgan, Quincy's voice immediately turned icy. "Who are you to compare yourself to Morgan?" I laughed bitterly. "You're right. I'm not worthy, which is why I don't want good things wasted on me." Quincy couldn't respond. I looked at the wall clock and continued, "Please have Morgan arrange a time for you to go to the Civil Affairs Bureau for the divorce. Once you've set a date, just text me. No need to call anymore." I was about to hang up, but Quincy changed the subject. "Mason is next to me. He wants to talk to you." Before Mason could speak, I quickly pressed the power button, decisively and firmly, just like the way Mason had blocked my number that day. Without hesitation, I put down the phone and took Grandma's hand to watch traditional opera together. The two of us listened to the familiar melodies, just like before. A week passed quickly. While I was waiting for someone in the hotel reception hall, I received a call from an unknown number. It was Mason's school discipline teacher calling, saying the boy had just gotten into a fight with a classmate. The reason was that another student had heard the rumor and asked Mason in front of the whole class why his parents divorced. I said it wasn't a rumor. Mason's father and I had indeed divorced. Now custody belonged entirely to his father, so please contact him to handle it. I ended the call with, "I wish you a good night." The teacher was somewhat confused, saying Mason had only provided my number. Reluctantly, I asked the teacher to put it on speakerphone in front of the injured student and their parents. I said coldly to Mason, "You hitting someone is wrong. When you're wrong, you must admit it. Isn't that the principle you and your father always believe in? Also, whether it's you or your father, from now on, whatever happens, please don't call me anymore. Mason, you need to understand clearly. We no longer have any connection." After saying this, I decisively hung up. After setting my phone to do not disturb mode, I turned and smiled at my best friend Hannah and her daughter. When I was pregnant with Mason, I had hoped the baby would be a girl. Although the result wasn't what I expected, I still treated Mason like a treasure, raising him with all my heart. Before he was 5 or 6, Mason would mourn a cat that died in a cartoon by burying a small tree in the backyard as a memorial. He once secretly took a red flower from kindergarten and pinned it in my hair when I wasn't paying attention. But later, when Quincy started frequently taking Mason back to the ancestral home, that 8-year-old child gradually stopped crying and stopped smiling. He began to look down on my grandmother's red brick, black-tiled house, saying it wasn't as good as the modern high-rises in the city. He once said to me, "Mom, you grew up in a place like this. No wonder Grandma Tang always looks down on you." A piece of cheesecake from Hannah's daughter brought me back from my memories. Seeing me eat it, Hannah joked, "Now that you've eaten it, you owe me. This time you absolutely have to come cheer on your goddaughter at her competition." I put my arm around her shoulder and smiled brightly. "Don't worry, this godmother will definitely be there." Over a month later, on a Friday, Quincy and I unexpectedly ran into each other at the school sports field. Next to him was Morgan. That woman took the initiative to link arms with him, smiling as she greeted me. Selena, long time no see. Mason didn't tell me be coming too. Jenny Kim, my goddaughter, was the sprint club president. There was definitely a competition today, and I was only here for her. Seeing me completely ignore Morgan's greeting, not even glancing at her, just silently walking straight to the stands, Quincy finally let go of her hand and hurried after me, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Selena? Didn't you say you were cutting off your relationship with your son? What are you doing here making a fool of yourself? I didn't bother arguing with him, just said calmly, please don't stand next to me. I don't want people to misunderstand. He asked, misunderstand what? I replied coldly, misunderstand that we're still married. Quincy froze for a moment, then his face immediately darkened. Selena, I advise you to know when to stop. I truly didn't understand what he meant by that. At that moment, I was just focused on looking toward the track, excitedly waving at Jenny Kim. Mason was standing about 5 meters from the girl. I knew clearly he had seen me. Perhaps he thought I was waving at him, which is why his face showed such obvious disgust and contempt. The starting gun fired, and boys and girls launched forward simultaneously. Jenny ran unexpectedly fast, while Mason, who usually came in first, suddenly fell in the middle of the track. The race ended. Quincy and I, without planning it, rushed down to the track at the same time. He was several steps faster than me, immediately running to his son's side, his face serious as he asked the school doctor about the injury. Before the doctor could speak, Quincy raised his hand to signal wait, then turned his head, looking unhappily at me standing not far away. Selena, how long are you planning to stand there? Your son is injured and you don't see it? His reproach drew the attention of surrounding teachers and students. I looked at my phone, expressionless, and walked over. Looking at Mason, his lips were pale white, both knees scraped, swollen and red, blood everywhere, his left ankle twisted at a grotesque angle. He was in so much pain that he instinctively reached toward me, his eyes full of desperate pleading. I only felt ironic. What does this have to do with me? Didn't he write in his essay last year that he had grown up and no longer needed a useless mother who only knew how to cook and do laundry, who couldn't even play a single piano piece and was always worrying about trivial, unnecessary things like me? In front of everyone's gaze, I calmly walked past Mason, broke into a bright smile, and ran to the girls' track, warmly embracing the jubilant Jenny. Jenny, you were absolutely amazing. Congratulations on winning the medal. Come on, sweetheart. Your mom is waiting at the school gate. She said she'll take us for that seafood dinner you've been craving. In that light and joyful atmosphere, I walked out of the school gate as if nothing had disturbed my heart. As soon as I got in the car, Quincy called. Initially I didn't plan to answer, but the text message he sent was about the divorce. When we arrived at the restaurant, I told Hannah to take her daughter afterst. I would come in after. After 2 months, this was the first time I proactively called Quincy back. The phone had barely rung for half a second when a somewhat panicked and angry voice came through. Selena, where are you right now? Where I am doesn't matter. What matters most is when you're free to go with me to the Civil Affairs Bureau. Quincy was silent for a moment, then his voice lowered, deliberately softening. Come to the hospital. Mason's injury isn't minor. The doctor says he might not be able to compete anymore. The doctor says we need to discuss some things with both of us. If he can't compete, then he can't. I answered calmly. Such a small matter doesn't require you to inform me. Quincy seemed unable to believe his own ears, raising his voice to ask, Selena, how can you say such things? You're still his mother. I rested my head on the soft cushion in the back seat of the car, my voice calm as still water. Quincy, that day it was you who called Mason into the study and had him tell me himself that after the divorce, he didn't want to live with an outsider like me. But now when something happens, you're acting like I'm the one who abandoned him. Don't you see how contradictory and ridiculous you two are? The other end was silent for a long time. So long I thought he was deliberately ignoring me. Just as I was about to hang up, Quincy's voice rang out, cold and dark, but hiding an undisguisable pleading. Selena, whatever conditions you have, just say them. Just as long as you're willing to come to the hospital to take care of him. You know how busy I am. I can't just stay here forever. I laughed softly and replied coldly, "My condition from beginning to end has only been one thing: quickly complete the divorce procedures with me. As for Mason, as your ex-wife, all I can suggest is that you hire a private nurse to care for him soon." I don't know which sentence angered Quincy, but from the other end came the crashing sounds of objects being thrown to the floor. Then came furious shouting. "Mason is the child you carried for 10 months and suffered through 2 days of labor to give birth to. Selena, do you really want to divorce and make our son grow up in a broken family?" I calmly reminded him. "Why not? Don't you always have a woman by your side silently waiting for you to turn around? Morgan cares very much about Mason. As you said, when you love someone you love everything about them, so clearly Mason also looks forward to the day she becomes his mother. As his father, shouldn't you fulfill this wish for him soon?" Quincy clenched his fist and punched the wall, his voice choked. "Are you really willing to let your son call another woman mother?" I didn't hesitate at all and answered, "Absolutely willing," with the utmost sincerity. 3 years ago, when the Morgan family business overseas went bankrupt, Morgan returned to the country in dire straits. Quincy ignored everyone's objections and invited her to be his personal secretary, entrusting her with all important matters within the corporation. On last year's Mother's Day, Mason specially ordered 99 carnations and personally delivered them to Morgan at the company. He even skipped school multiple times to have meals with her. Actually, they're the real family. As for me, after seeing everything clearly, I should continue living and moving forward. Quincy on the other end kept talking, completely different from his usual cold demeanor, but I was truly too hungry and no longer patient enough to waste time with him. I interrupted, decisive. "Next Monday, if you're not free to come to the Civil Affairs Bureau, then we'll meet in court." After saying this, I hung up, turned off my phone, and walked into the restaurant. Monday came, and Quincy still didn't show up. So I officially hired a lawyer and fully entrusted the divorce proceedings to legal professionals. Half a month later, on a weekend afternoon in a vast field, I wore a straw hat and gazed at the distant twilight sky, gently patting the shoulder of the girl beside me, smiling brightly. "Jenny, Grandma must have finished cooking by now. Let's go home and eat." Jenny cheered excitedly, linking arms with me, holding a basket of freshly picked fruit in her other hand, running and chatting happily. We had just entered the house, about to show Grandma today's harvest, when I noticed her expression was a bit strange. Following her gaze into the house, I slowly discovered an uninvited guest in the living room. Mason. Although she hadn't seen her grandson in years, every year Grandma would use her old phone, trembling as she typed each word, reminding me to send the latest family photos for her to see. So she still recognized Mason. I hadn't told her some things, but this woman who had lived alone for more than half a century had a heart clear as a mirror, seeing through everything. Hearing me speak softly, Grandma took Jenny into the kitchen to wash the fruit, letting me handle things first before coming in. Grandma silently nodded, helped brush dust from my cheek, took the fruit basket with her, and led Jenny inside. I walked into the living room. The teenager stood up from the sofa with difficulty. His leg was in a splint and bandaged for support, with simple luggage beside him. I glanced over, my voice calm. "What are you doing at my house?" The question had just left my lips when the already strained atmosphere became even more suffocating, as if all the air had stopped. Mason's fingers unconsciously scratched the hem of his jeans. Before long, his nails were bleeding, the clearest sign of anxiety and unease. In the past, whenever he was like this, I was always the first to step forward, take his hand, and gently comfort and distract him with jokes. But this time Mason waited and waited, never seeing me approach as usual. No hand reached out to stop him from hurting himself. After a long silent struggle, he finally turned away, staring at a book by the TV, gritting his teeth and saying quietly, "I'm injured. The doctor said I need Mom to take care of me to recover properly." A foolishly transparent lie. I sat down in a single chair and replied calmly, "I know your father forced you to come. Don't worry. I won't bother you." Mason suddenly shook his head quickly, his voice somewhat urgent. "I wanted to come myself." I was silent for a few seconds, then said calmly, "It doesn't matter whose idea it was. What you need to understand is that your father and I have decided to divorce. He won custody. From now on, you two are the real family." As soon as I finished, Mason's eyes immediately looked straight at me, his gaze carrying youthful stubbornness but also shining with bewilderment and painful disbelief. "But you're still my mother." Seeing my expressionless face and no response, he bit his lip. "You can't deny that no matter what, legally I'm forever your son." "Yes, he is my biological child. I once poured out all my love, exhausted all my to raise and care for him. Unfortunately, he was never worthy of all those feelings." Mason, do you remember last year when I came to school for your commendation ceremony? That day Mason won first prize in the International Mathematics Competition for teenagers and was honored as the school's outstanding student. The school specifically told me in advance that parents would go on stage to present awards to their children. Not wanting to embarrass him, I went to a high-end salon for the first time and sat for hours to do makeup and dress impeccably. But the moment I stepped into the auditorium and was about to shake hands with Mason's homeroom teacher, he led Morgan over and proactively introduced her to the teacher. "This is my mother." When the homeroom teacher looked at me questioningly, the teenager glanced at me coldly and said icily, "Richest Tran, please understand your position. You're just the cook and helper in my house. Please don't dress so flashily and come to occasions like this. It's very embarrassing." And so Morgan went on stage in my place to present the award. Amid prolonged, thunderous applause, she hugged Mason and they took intimate photos like a real family. That photo, taken that day, is still displayed in the most prominent position on Quincy's desk. Now in the living room, Mason's face grew paler and paler. I continued calmly, "Mason, I know you've always been ashamed of having a mother like me. You feel I'm not worthy of being your mother. If that's the case, then right here and now I'm telling you clearly I, Selena Tran, am no longer your mother. Just like you, Mason is no longer my son. You said it yourself, you're a Tang, I'm a Tran. From now on, we have no relationship whatsoever." Having said everything I had bottled up inside, I stood up, walked straight to the door, leaned against the doorframe looking at the teenager before me, and coldly ordered, "After you leave here, don't ever come back. This house doesn't welcome outsiders." Hearing my words, Mason's fingers trembled. Both hands clenched into fists, his feet planted firmly, refusing to leave. I didn't linger. I strode back to the living room, lifted him up, and dragged him outside without any sentiment. "Mom, wait. My leg really hurts." Ignoring his heart-wrenching cries of pain, I decisively placed the boy outside the gate. As I threw the luggage at him, Quincy stepped out from behind the large tree in front of the gate, his face embarrassed, his voice trembling. "Selena, the boy has had nightmares every night these past few days. He really misses you, really needs you. Can you let him stay for a few days?" I refused without hesitation. "No." At that moment, Mason glanced toward the kitchen and discovered Jenny peeking out. He immediately flushed red, angrily pointing at the girl, his voice full of resentment. "Why does outsider like her get to stay here? But not me. I'm your biological son." I lowered my head, my eyes coldly looking at Mason. "What makes you think you can compare yourself to my precious daughter? Jenny doesn't just get to stay here. She can stay as long as she wants. If she wants to call me mom, then I'm her mother. And you?" I looked coldly at Mason, enunciating each word clearly. "Mason, I'm saying this for the last time. I don't need you anymore. From the moment you chose to follow your father, you were no longer Selena Tran's son." Mason stared at me in a daze. The teenager who, since age 5, had considered crying shameful, now had tears silently welling up and streaming from his eyes. After a long silence, Quincy helped his son up, his eyes full of disappointment. Finally he couldn't help but ask hoarsely, "Selena, why can you be so heartless toward your own child?" His answer was the heavy sound of the large door slamming shut, echoing through the courtyard. That night, amid storm winds and rain, thunder rumbling, Quincy's car remained parked on the dirt road behind the large tree. My grandmother took a flashlight and opened an oiled paper umbrella, wanting to go out and bring Mason a warm blanket. I discovered her in time, gently guided her back inside, and softly coaxed Grandma to sleep. The next morning at dawn, Quincy, who had always been calm and cold, frantically knocked on my courtyard gate, begging me to come check on Mason's condition. He said, "Last night he had a high fever, vomiting and dizzy. He's very sick. The doctor can't handle it." My grandmother is hard of hearing and didn't hear the knocking. Jenny and I were sleeping with earplugs, so not even our dreams were disturbed. We just comfortably rolled over and continued sleeping. It wasn't until noon when I woke up and saw Quincy's car was gone that I smiled brightly, hummed a little tune, and took Jenny for a walk in Grandma's pumpkin trellis. When I took the girl back to school, she brought quite a bit of hand-picked fruit to share with her dormmates. A group of city girls who rarely visited the countryside chirped like sparrows just waking up. These kumquats. They're huge, and sweeter than the ones from the supermarket. These are what my godmother and I picked together. My godmother used to be a PhD graduate student at Agricultural University. This variety of large American kumquat only grows at my godmother's grandmother's old house. Other places don't have them. Hearing this, a friend excitedly asked me, "Next time Jenny goes to the countryside, can we come along?" I smiled and nodded. A cheer of joy rang throughout the girls' dormitory. Leaving the dorm, I stood quietly under the hallway eaves bathed in the red glow of sunset, silently looking up at the vast sky. Something I hadn't paid attention to appreciating in a very long time. PhD from Agricultural University. I couldn't remember the last time I'd heard that title. 13 years ago, I was still an innocent graduate student on the university campus. Every day attending classes, doing research, writing papers, that was my entire life, until I unexpectedly discovered I was pregnant with Mason. Initially I had no intention of keeping the baby, but Quincy acted as if without this child, he'd rather die. He persisted relentlessly, even kneeling to propose, putting a diamond ring on my finger. In my confusion and haziness, I eventually accepted and stepped into the Tang household, marrying into a prestigious family. Back then everyone said the Tran family truly had ancestors' blessings. Their ancestral graves were glowing. At first, Quincy had promised that once the baby was a bit older, I could continue pursuing academics and do what I truly loved. But day after day, year after year, in a blink, Mason had reached elementary school age. When I once again proposed wanting to return to school, the Tang family members strongly objected. They said, "A Tang family son cannot have a mother who's constantly covered in dirt like a country person." Even Mason himself told me, "Mom, Grandma Tang says marrying Dad is the greatest fortune of your life. Don't do these strange things that embarrass the Tang family anymore." A phone ringtone suddenly rang, pulling me back to reality. Seeing Quincy's name displayed, I didn't waver at all and blocked the number directly. I had already authorized my lawyer to file the divorce petition with the court, and had clearly informed Quincy that if there was anything, he should communicate directly with my lawyer. If he chose not to cooperate, then I didn't need to be courteous and take his calls. In January, a major storm swept through, collapsing the roof of the already old auxiliary building at Grandma's house. So Grandma and I discussed and decided to completely rebuild the entire house. Before starting, we needed to clean up important items to temporarily move into storage. I pushed open the door to what used to be my parents' room. Occasionally Grandma would still come in with a feather duster to sweep away dust, so the place was still quite clean. I hadn't been cleaning long when I found Mr. Rabbit, the stuffed bunny my late mother had sewn by hand. I smiled gently, about to turn and call Grandma to look together when a warm, solid chest suddenly blocked my way. "That stuffed rabbit looks familiar." A deep voice carrying fake gentleness sounded behind me. It was Quincy. The smile on my lips immediately disappeared. I said coldly, "Quincy, do I have to report you to the police for trespassing before you'll leave my sight?" The words were so blunt that the always proud and arrogant man showed embarrassment and pitiable awkwardness for the first time. He ran his hand along the wall beside him, his voice hoarse as if just strangled. "Selina, I know you hate me to the bone right now and don't want to see me again. But no matter what, we were husband and wife for 13 years. I just hope you'll give me one chance to explain these misunderstandings." I looked at him coldly, my eyes without any emotion. "There are no misunderstandings between us." For the first time in my life, I saw a completely chaotic Quincy, speaking incoherently, without any rationality. He stumbled over his words. "That day when you saw me and Morgan entering the hotel, why didn't you call me back? Selina, if you had just called my name once, you would have known that Morgan and I went there only to meet a client whose office is in that building. If you don't believe me, I can call and get the security footage from that day for you to see." As he spoke, Quincy pulled out his phone, about to actually call the hotel staff. I shook my head, my voice calm. "No need." "What did you say?" I said, "Whatever is between you and Morgan is between you two. You don't need to explain to me, because I completely don't care. I wasn't lying to Quincy. Actually, my draft divorce papers had been printed before I witnessed him and Morgan walking into the hotel together. I had planned to wait until after our 13th wedding anniversary to tell him about the divorce. It's just that life didn't go according to plan. Hearing this, Quincy stood frozen for a long while before his lips could move. He repeated stubbornly, "Selena, this is very important. You can't misunderstand me like this." Whether there's a misunderstanding or not, in Quincy's heart he certainly understands better than anyone. Seeing I didn't want to continue arguing and was about to turn and leave, he still refused to give up, reaching out to grab my wrist tightly. "Wife, I truly know I was wrong. On the way here I already fired Morgan." The words made a fierce light flash through his eyes before he continued. "You know my personality. From childhood to now, I've never begged anyone, not even my parents. But today I'm standing here begging you. Please give me one last chance. Can we not divorce?" I looked into those earnest eyes. In his eyes was deep regret, but in mine remained only stillness like the surface of an ancient well. "Quincy." My voice was soft yet icy. "I truly have stopped loving you. So let's end this." I pulled my hand from his loosened grip and walked straight out of the room. Outside stood a teenager with a face identical to Quincy's when he was young. The boy's eyes stared in confusion at the Mr. Rabbit stuffed bunny in my hands, his eyes red-rimmed, his voice choked. "This is the rabbit Grandma made for me. I thought I'd lost it." I shook my head, my eyes cold. "You didn't lose it, Mason. You threw it in the trash with your own hands when you were 8 years old." Mr. Rabbit was a third birthday gift my mother, while enduring the pain of cancer, had sewn stitch by stitch especially for Mason. When Mason was little and afraid to sleep alone at night, as long as Mr. Rabbit was beside him, he would become a brave warrior. At age 5, just because the bunny's ear came loose, he cried while hugging me, begging me to repair his poor little friend. But at age 8, because of something Morgan said when she returned to the country, "Boys your age abroad don't like such silly stuffed animals anymore." He quietly tore up the bunny, pretended to be innocent, and threw it deep in the trash. To find that gift, I acted like a madwoman, running to every garbage collection point around the area, bag by bag, layer by layer, vomiting and trembling while searching. After an entire afternoon of searching, I finally found the tattered relic my mother had left behind. That day I couldn't hold back, crying while spanking Mason once, making him stand in the corner for 10 minutes. From that day, Mason began to distance himself from me. Many years have passed. Now Mason's eyes were red-rimmed, looking at the bunny he had once thrown away, his voice hoarse and sobbing. "Mom, this is what Grandma made for me. Can you give it to me? I've been having insomnia lately. I really need it." Mason reached out to touch the stuffed bunny, but I didn't let him get close. I used all my strength to turn and walk quickly, causing Mason, who was reaching forward, to stumble and fall to the ground. He lay there, face pale, eyes hopeless, looking up at me as if pleading. I coldly lowered my head, my voice ice cold. "Don't touch my mother's keepsake with your dirty hands." Just as the words ended, Morgan's surprised cry rang out in the distance. The uninvited woman walked in with a pained expression, looking at Mason then glaring at me accusingly. "Selena, are you crazy? Just because Quincy doesn't need you anymore, you take out your anger on his son." I knew very well Quincy was standing right behind me, and Morgan's words were just adding fuel to the fire, deliberately causing division. I lowered my head and smiled slightly. Even in this situation, that woman still dared to think she was righteous. I walked up to face Morgan. Without a word, I swung and slapped her. Morgan froze for a moment. Just as she opened her mouth to argue, I coldly slapped her again. Only then did she snap awake, tears streaming down in anger. She screamed, raising her hand to strike back, but Quincy had already blocked between us, raising his hand to stop her while lowering his voice to advise. "Don't get agitated. Selena, please don't be too angry." Morgan's face immediately went through continuous changes, pale white then flushed red like flashing lights. "Quincy, don't you see? The one who got hit is me, not her." She screamed frantically, unable to control her emotions. Quincy furrowed his brow tightly, his voice low. "I personally fired you. It has nothing to do with Selena. If there's nothing else, please leave." Morgan's eyes widened in disbelief. "She didn't just hit me. She deliberately made your son fall too. Quincy, are you blind?" Just then, Mason shakily stood up, his voice sounding choked. It has nothing to do with my mom. I fell on my own. Morgan's face turned white as paper as she staggered back several steps. She pointed and cursed, "Bastards." Not only was Quincy a bastard, but even the son he raised was an ungrateful bastard. Then she ran away crying, leaving Quincy and Mason standing frozen like statues. The father and son's eyes looked at me in confusion, as if waiting and hoping I would change my mind. I knew very well what they were thinking. They thought that as long as Morgan, that explosive catalyst, was removed, I would, like before, soften and return to be the perfect wife and mother. Sure enough, as expected, I had only taken a few steps when I heard Quincy's voice from behind, shamelessly saying, "Selena, Mason and I drove 2 hours to get here and haven't eaten anything yet. Actually, I'm fine, but Mason, our child, is still growing. Can you cook him a bowl of noodles?" I pondered for a few seconds, then said coldly, "Then wait outside the gate, I'll bring some food out." After speaking, I didn't go to the kitchen but took the small stuffed bunny back to my bedroom. Opening the top drawer of my vanity, I took out a contract I had prepared long ago. 2 minutes later, I walked out, gave Quincy a bag of bread, and handed him the contract personally. I said, "I've asked my lawyer. Currently in this country it's very difficult to legally terminate a mother-child relationship. But that's okay. As long as Mason signs this contract, there will be no more obligations regarding support duties or family responsibilities between us. I've chosen to give up my child, so I won't let him bear the responsibility of supporting me in the future either. This contract is to protect Mason's rights." However, the teenager suddenly dropped to his knees before me, his eyes red-rimmed, pulling at my pant leg, crying until he choked and couldn't breathe. "Mom, I don't want to cut ties with you. These past few days, no matter who I hire, no one compares to you. I miss the food you cooked. I miss when you stayed up at night taking care of me. Without you, I can't do anything. I'm useless. I can't survive without you, Mom. Please don't abandon me. Mom, please." Quincy stood there, his eyes empty as he looked at me, as if looking at a complete stranger. Mason begged for a long time, but I remained indifferent, completely unmoved. Finally, in panic and despair, the teenager turned to his father, screaming as if his heart was being torn out. "Dad, didn't you say Mom was just angry? That it was just words spoken in anger? You lied to me. You lied to me. Dad, hurry and tell Mom. Tell her I know I was wrong. That from now on I'll be good and obedient." Quincy turned his face away, his eyes sinking into darkness. After a long moment, he struggled to stabilize his emotions and slowly turned back to look at me, his eyes pleading. "Selena." I cut him off, my voice calm. "Take Mason home. Never come back again." Having finished speaking, I didn't look at the father and son even once more. Ignoring their pain-filled eyes, I calmly closed the heavy wooden gate. Turning back inside, I saw Grandma sitting in a small ray of sunlight, wearing reading glasses, meticulously sewing up the torn Mr. Rabbit. I poured 2 cups of tea, one for her, one for myself, and opened my laptop, preparing to work. 5 months after the divorce, I substituted for my best friend Hannah, who was working overtime, and went to pick up her daughter from school. As soon as Jenny got in the car, she chattered away. "Godmother, there's been something really big at school lately. Last week there was a 9th grader named Mason who got into a fight with his dad. His dad is always drunk apparently. He jumped from the 4th floor during evening study hall. He's still in the ICU now. Nobody knows if he'll make it." This was so serious the school had to organize several psychological counseling sessions for students. It made me miss several midday piano lessons. Hearing the innocent girl complain, I was silent for a moment, then gently smoothed the messy hair on her forehead and smiled. "My Jenny won't be as foolish as that boy, right? Life is long. Even if you make mistakes, as long as you have the courage to start over, there's no pain that can't be overcome." The girl nodded blankly, then hugged my arm and whined, "With Mom Hannah and Mom Selena protecting me, I'm not afraid of anything." I laughed. "That's my good girl. Now tell me, what do you want to eat today? Let's go right now." The streetlights flickered on both sides of the street. I gripped the steering wheel firmly, driving the silver car, quietly merging into the bustling crowds. The road is always right beneath your feet. As long as you have the will, you can go anywhere you want.